From the earliest time, the South China Sea has been a bustling maritime highway connecting east and west, but not all the ships that plied this trading route reached their destination. The east coast of Malaysia, an expedition led by maritime archaeologist Sten Sjostrand, has recovered a shipwreck from the early 1600s.
Can we twist it down inboard?
Get something to stick under it.
Inboard, twist it this way. But don't
This is Sten's 10th shipwreck discovery, which he named the Wan Li, after the Chinese emperor who reigned at the time. A Portuguese trading vessel, the Wan Li provided evidence of turbulent warfare, which turned the South China Sea into a battleground.
Once we've taken up the cargo, we see what's left of the actual ship itself. We'll find out a lot of the port side of the vessel was missing, very likely where there had been an explosion.
Okay, guys, I don't need all of you.
We believe that the Wan Li ship exploded. 95% of the porcelain cargo was actually spoiled, broken, fragmented, and in some cases pulverized.
In the early 1600s, the South China Sea was a battleground as European powers fought each other for control of trade. The Portuguese arrived first in the early 1500s, but the Dutch soon challenged their control of the trade routes. At the heart of the conflict between the Portuguese and Dutch were their allowances to trade with China. China's markets were far more controlled than they are today. In the early 1600s, the Portuguese were the only European power with access to them.
The Dutch could not trade directly with China. They had to stay in Taiwan. They had to rely on Chinese middlemen to supply them surrounding.
Well, how much? How much? For what? 400.
With free access for the Portuguese traders and no access for the Dutch were all the more determined to seize the Portuguese ships and take the cargo for themselves. The Dutch took the fight all the way down the South China Sea, including the Portuguese stronghold of Malacca, the vital passageway connecting China and Europe.
The Dutch had arrived down here, 1600, and from day one they tried to capture Malacca from the Portuguese, and they were not successful until 1640. So in those first 40 years of the 1600, the Dutch were out and trying to shoot down every single Portuguese ship they could find to interrupt the economy of Malacca. Written record talks about a loss of 150 ships, Portuguese ships between 1600 and 1640. That's a lot of ships.
As the battle for maritime supremacy escalated, both sides stepped up their strategies to outsmart each other on the open waters.
And it took a little while before the Portuguese found that if they were building smaller ships, like the Wan Li, 18 meters long only, then they could outrun the Dutch.
But as Sten discovered at the bottom of Malaysian waters, the tactic of trying to outrun the Dutch was not so successful in the end for the Portuguese ship he called the Wan Li.
The Dutch come up with a countermeasure. The countermeasure was to hide behind islands so the oncoming Portuguese could not see. And once they were very close, then the Dutch would go out and they would shoot them down. The Dutch had a rule: whenever they could capture one of those escaping Portuguese captains, they will keel haul them. They will actually pull them underneath the keel. Very few people survived keel hauling in those days.
The Dutch eventually took Malacca from the Portuguese, and from the mid-1600s extended their maritime control in the region over the next 150 years.